will come in for your glory. We will lift you up. We will come in for your glory. We will lift you up. We will come in for your glory. We will lift you up.
Remain standing with me. I want to read some scripture with you. This is a very, very, very familiar story in the Bible. I want us to look at it from a little bit of a different perspective this week. That's what I'm asking you to do. But I'm going to start by saying this is a very, very, very familiar story in the Bible. You probably have heard people preach on this or have seen this many times before. This is Jesus. He's walking with his disciples. He's beginning to, just to give you a little bit of background, just to give you a little bit of context. He's getting ready to be crucified. And his closest people to him, his disciples, and those people who are following him, somewhere around, different accounts, but somewhere around 125 people total that are following him. He's starting to do his farewell addresses. He's starting to do his swan song, whatever analogy we want to use. And what he begins to do is he begins to explain so that they're not taken back, so they should know this, right? Because all the old prophecies in the Bible point to his sacrifice. All of them. But Jesus feels it's important that he began to communicate to his disciples that this thing is about to happen. And I believe in all my heart that he's beginning to teach them these things before it happens so that they will respond to anger in the right way. Amen? And so we pick it up here in Matthew 16, verse 21. He says, from that time, Jesus, Yeshua, began to show to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things, be spat on, beaten, the cat o' nine tails. I'm talking about glass and all different pieces of metal, ripping out portions of his skin out of his back. I'm talking about the Romans were experts at making you hurt. Torture, yeah, that's right. They were experts at torture. They were able to torture like nobody in the history of mankind. I mean, they were really excellent at this thing called torture. Now, got to look at this now. So Jesus begins to speak to him, and he says, I'm going to suffer many things from the elders and the chief priests and the scribes. It's going to happen not because the bad people out there. This is going to happen from the people who should be taking care of me. This is going to happen by the people who should be, in the seat of justice. This should be taken care of by the government. This should be taken care of by the police. There are people in place that should be protecting me from this injustice. And those are going to be the very people that are going to inflict on me this injustice. You got to see this from a different perspective. He says the chief priests, the scribes, and this is what he says is going to happen, and be killed. And then I'm going to be raised from the dead on the third day. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Peter gets angry. I want you guys to see this. And he begins to rebuke Jesus. He begins to rebuke Jesus. And he begins to rebuke him, saying, far be it from you. Had a good reason to do it, but he's angry. He says, far be it from you, Lord, this shall not happen to you. He's angry. He's upset about this injustice that's going to happen. He says, but he, this is Jesus, capital H, turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. I know you heard this before. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. He says, then Jesus, Yeshua, said to his disciples, if anyone desires to come after me, this is what you have to do, every single one of us. If you want to come after me, if you want to follow me, if you want to be a Christian, you cannot get angry. You cannot just do the thing that you want to do when things doesn't go the way that you want them to go. When things doesn't go the way that you want them to go, when you're in this situation that Peter was in, this is what you have to do. You have to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow Jesus. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. You guys may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Amen. To God be the glory. Amen. I feel like taking benediction. You know, sometimes the word just preaches itself. You don't have to do much to it. My goal is not to mess up what I hear in the spirit that you already see. I believe in the spirit that something is happening on the inside of you, and you're already being convicted about the anger, about the way that we handle anger. And so what I want to do is, we've been talking about these starfish and how they were in shallow water, and how because they were in shallow water, the storm came in. If you haven't been with us, go back. I think we're about 3 weeks into this now. This is all explained in the first sermon in this series. But for those who are joining us today, these starfish, they were in 50,000 of them in shallow water eating, instead of going deep and eating, they were taking the opportunity to eat in shallow water. And the storm comes through without them knowing it. The storm picks them up and it throws them on the shore, and most of them die because instead of them being in the deep water where they were safe, in a deep relationship with God, in a deep relationship we talked about last week with compassion, in these deep relationships, and that's what we're going to do during this series. While we're in this situation, this whole stay-at-home situation, and we've got all this stuff going on, it's time for us to go deeper so that we do not come out of this situation the way that we went into it. And so what we've been doing, and what we're going to continue to do, is we're going to continue to look at the various situations that we find ourselves in, and we will look for opportunities each week to go deeper so that when we come out of this mess that we're in right now, that we won't still be the mess that we were before we went into this mess. That there's an opportunity for every single person, man, woman, and child to come out of this thing better than you ever could have imagined. That in the midst of this tribulation, in the midst of this trouble, that there's an opportunity for you to go to heights that you've never gone to before. And this week, I want to focus on going deeper in anger. And I just want to talk with you a little bit about anger. And it's amazing how God speaks to your pastor. And now I know more about a car's cooling system than I will ever need, to know. But it's amazing how God explains things to your pastor, and I hope that these things, that they help you to understand God's word a little bit better. But what God began to speak to me and show me is that for many of us, we approach anger like a thermometer. When we get hot, we just get as hot as we can. And when we're cold, when we're numb to something, we just get as cold as we can. You know, we can be as cold as we want to be. We can be as hot as we want to be. And for many of us, we're going up and down and up and down. And many of us, we strive to be good thermometers. So inside of the situation, we say, okay, now I need to get hot here. So we say, if he say this to me, if she say, we rehearse this stuff. If this person does, when I get to work, if they look at me, if they say this to me, if such and such stop by my desk, you rehearse it. You're a thermometer. You're thinking like a thermometer. When I get to work, I'm going to get hot real quick. I'm going to let them know real quick. Hey, this is not the way that you're not going to talk to me this kind of way. I'm not a doormat. We rehearse hot. Sometimes we get angry. We rehearse cold. I'm married now. I can talk about marriage stuff. Y'all can laugh or not laugh. But I've slept on the edge of the bed. I was trying to be so cold. I'm sleeping on the edge of the bed as far away as I can. I'm letting her know. Listen, she over there asleep. Shaka over there asleep, ain't even thinking about me. I'm all the way on the edge of the bed and no cover on me because I'm trying to show her. I'm going to show her that I'm mad at her, that I'm angry with her, because we think like thermometers. It's time for me to be cold. You're not doing me this way. I'm not going to talk to you for 3 days. I'm not saying anything. We get cold, we get on the edge of that bed. Y'all know, somebody know what I'm talking about. Somebody knows. We block people. What we do. We say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm a thermometer, right? So you made me angry, and so this is what I'm going to do. For a period of time, I'm blocking you. I'm not taking any. This is silly. This is shallow stuff. This is the kind of shallow ways in which we have managed anger in the past. And this is ruining relationships. It's ruining jobs. But this is what you got. I want you to get this. You know who it hurts when I'm laying on the edge of the bed all night long? And I'm cold all night long. I wake up, my throat all dry, my back hurting, my neck hurting. I done slept all on the edge of the bed. Do you know who it hurts? Ashaki laid there asleep. She didn't even know I was over there laying on the edge of the bed. She had no idea. Listen, people, the only person that you are hurting inside of these relationships, inside of these crazy outbursts of anger, is yourself. You're the one who feels guilty when everybody else leaves and you cuss them out, and then God starts working on you. And then all of a sudden you start to say, man, or he brings it to remembrance. You say, man, my mama used to yell at me when I was little, and I promised myself that when I got bigger, I would never yell at my children. And then all of a sudden, this outburst of anger happens, and it didn't hurt them. They're laughing at you. They just take as much of it as they can, all the people around you. Whenever you have outbursts of anger, whenever you react like a thermometer, all people do is they really just ignore you. And then at some point when you calm down, when they see that you have calmed down some and you're back to your normal temperature, then they begin to engage with you a little bit more. And let me just talk to you for a second. Thermometers, I'm talking to the thermometers. I'm not talking to everybody. I'm talking to thermometers. People know what's gonna make you hot. They already know what's gonna make you cold. And in many instances, this is crazy, right? It's shallow. This is how we have been taught to handle anger. This is how we've been taught to manage anger, because anger is a very real thing. And what the Spirit of the Lord began to talk to me about, we should not be managing anger like a thermometer. Like, I'm going to get hot now, I'm going to get cold now. None of that kind of stuff. That's foolishness. We should be managing anger like a thermostat. And this is amazing what a thermostat does. Now I want to make sure I got to take my time and make sure you understand this. You don't have to spend all the hours that I spend into it trying to understand it. I just want to take some time and make sure that you understand this. Inside of this thermostat is wax. I had no idea. This thermostat sits between the engine and the radiator. I want you to get this now. And what happens is when the engine gets hot, the wax melts. And when the wax melts, it actually pulls this spring forward, and it allows for the cool water that's coming through the cooling system through the radiator to come into the engine and cool things off. If this thing doesn't work, then the engine can burn out. It can explode. It can do damage to itself. It can do damage to everybody around. It can do damage to the people that's in it. But as long as this thing works, what it does is it gets hot, and when it gets hot, it opens up and it allows for the fluid inside of the radiator to come in and cool the situation off. And what the Spirit of the Lord began to say to me is, listen, each one of us, you're being given a choice today. You're not going to leave out of here the way that you came out. You're either going to leave out of here, well, I shouldn't say that. Some people are going to leave out exactly how they came in here. But there's an opportunity for every single person in here today, every single person online, to not leave out of here the way that you came. You came in here a thermometer. You were told if such and such, you've been told by people. If my husband did that, I wouldn't put up with that. You've been told by people. If my children did that, you've been told by people. Listen, if my friend did that, what kind of, you just got to cut them off. You've been told, you cross this line, I'm throwing a drink in your face. Isn't that ridiculous these are the kind of things that you're being shown and told in all the stuff that happens. So what happens is you get angry, obviously, and you just throw a drink inside of somebody's face because you're angry. What did that do? What did that change? And what we've got to do, and this is what I'm saying, we've got to go deeper in anger. If we cannot stay in the shallow parts of anger. We've got to get to this place where we go deeper in anger and we begin to understand that there's a responsibility that we have in anger, that we have an opportunity to do this thing called manage anger. You can actually make a decision just like this thermostat. You could actually say, it's getting too hot. I need to open up. Jesus is our radiator. I need to open up this valve so that Jesus can come inside of this situation and he can cool off my engine. He can cool off this situation. He can help me get through this situation. Now, here's the issue, though. Most of the time, you don't want Jesus don't move fast enough. You want justice. You want this fixed now. You want this person to pay now. You don't want to let go. You don't want to let it go. And so what you end up doing is you end up blocking Jesus from coming inside of your situation. And when you do that, you get too hot. And when you get too hot, you get messed up and you hurt and you can't sleep. And then you get pain on the inside of your body. Your stomach get messed up. You get all these different things going on the inside of your body. Your mind, you can't remember. You know, they link this anger stuff to so many things. It kills short-term memory. Did you know anger can kill short-term memory? Did you know anger, it can mess your diet up? Let me tell you what anger will do. Anger will make you real skinny, or it'll blow you up. When you're living in anger, it impacts your body. It impacts your stomach. It makes it the way you hurt all the time. It causes for your blood pressure to go up. It leads to all different types of ailments inside you. This thing called anger, which everybody has to go through, it has the impact on you if you do not manage it right. It'll take you out of here. People have stroked out anger with somebody. Oh, I'm so mad. And this is the promise. Here's the promise that Jesus gives us. In John 16:33, he says, these things I have spoken, this very thing that he's spoken, that he's getting ready to get killed, that you're going to get angry, that there's an opportunity for you to get angry. Things may not go the way you wanted them to go. There's an opportunity that you will not get what you want. That things may happen inside of your life that are out of your control. It was somebody else's fault. Somebody else should have did it. Somebody else should have said something. Somebody else should have apologized. There are going to be situations that are going to happen in your life that are going to cause you to get angry, that are going to cause you to get upset. And he says, these things I've spoken to you, that in me, you understand, he's the radiator. In me, you may have peace regardless of the situation. Regardless of what's going on in your marriage, you can have peace because you have a radiator. And all you have to do is be a thermostat and not a thermometer. All you have to do is stop responding to this ignorance and acting a fool and cussing people out. Stop getting angry and giving the cold shoulder and sleeping on the edge of the bed. Stop blocking people that you love, people that you've been in a relationship with. Now they blocked on your phone. Cut this mess out. And what he's saying is, you need to understand that in me, you can have peace even when you get angry. Even when things don't go right, you can have this thing. Let me just correct something. This whole thing, no justice, no peace, that is not biblical. We go around saying stuff as if it's biblical. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Well, you would never, let me just tell you two things, because we're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks. The first thing is, you don't really want justice. No, you don't really want justice. Because if you got what you really deserved all the time, you don't want justice. You say, we're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks. Stay tuned. You say you want justice, and I can't have peace until there's justice. But here's the reality. God says, I will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. It surpasses, that's what the word of God says. It surpasses justice. I'll give you peace in the midst of the worst situation of your life. I'll give you peace. Listen, gave me peace when my grandmother died. Gave me peace when my auntie died. Gave me peace when my uncle died. He gave me a peace that surpassed all understanding. Gave me peace when I thought I was going to lose my house. Gave me peace when raising my kids were hard. It is not always easy to raise kids, God, but there's a God that gave me peace in the midst of the hardest circumstances of my life. When people persecuted me, he gave me peace. When folk at work came against me, he gave me peace. And I didn't have to cuss anybody out at work. I kept my job. And listen, here's the amazing thing. God's justice came through eventually. Listen, every situation that I have been through, the justice of God has come through every time. The question always is whether or not I can be a thermostat instead of being a thermometer. And look what Jesus says. He says, in this world, you'll have tribulations. In this world, the engine gets hot inside the car. In this world, it's going to get hot. You'll have situations where you don't know how you're going to pay your bills. In this world, there's going to be things that happen and it's going to cause all kind of issues, and it's going to make you angry. In this world, there are going to be some people that get killed and that they shouldn't have got killed, and you're going to feel like, oh my goodness, this is not right. In this world, there are going to be people who get laid off, and you thought, man, they shouldn't have got laid off. In this world, there are going to be divorces. There are going to be things that happen. There are going to be decisions that people make outside of you that are going to make you angry. This is what we call them, tribulation. You're just like that motor. In this world, part of being in this world is this thing called tribulation, is this thing called heat. But this is what you got to understand. Although there's tribulation, although there's heat, although there's anger, you have the opportunity to be of good cheer. In other words, what Jesus is saying is, you can be a thermometer. You can say, regardless of what's happening in this tribulation, regardless of what's happening in my marriage, regardless of what's happening at my job, regardless of what's happening in my career, regardless of what they did to me, regardless of what's happening in this world, regardless of what's coming against me, I can be of good cheer because I know the radiator. I know the person that can bring in a cooling spirit. I know the person that can help me get through this situation. I know the person who will care for me and take care of me. And if I can just be a thermostat, if I can just pull back the wax of my heart, I got to think about this because this is really a valve. And what God began to show me is that this valve is no different than your heart valve. And what he begins to say is the difference between a person who reacts in anger and a person who opens up the thermostat so that the Spirit of the Lord comes in, it's all in your heart. And here's the problem is what happens in many cases is the stuff on the inside of this gets what? Hard. And because it gets hard, it doesn't open. And because it doesn't open, the engine gets hot. And everything starts to go wrong. And this is what he's saying. All you need to understand when you get angry, the only thing that you need to understand is that I am the radiator. I have already overcome every situation. You don't need to go out and have a certain kind of justice or see a certain kind of thing in order for you to get to the place where you can have peace. You can have peace right now. You don't have to cuss anybody else out. You don't have to put nobody else. You do not have to put nobody. Can I just talk to my people? Can I just talk to y'all for a second? You don't have to put nobody else in their place. It's not your job. You're doing his job. And the reason in many cases why God's justice hadn't shown up is because you being God. He said, as long as you're going to be God, I'm going to sit back here and I'm going to watch you be God. I'm going to watch you be the master of the universe. I'm going to watch you give the justice. And as soon as you're done now, I got justice coming for this person. But as long as you want to be God, as long as you want to be the radiator, I'm going to let you be the radiator. You go ahead on and do it. You keep on just being God. You keep on just being angry. You keep on just cussing people out. You keep on just putting people out. You keep on just doing the thing that you feel natural doing. And listen, and I'm just going to sit back and let you do it. But the minute that you become a thermostat, God begins to work inside of your situation. He begins to move the heat, the stuff that's got you burning over right now. He begins to move that stuff. And he begins to make a way for you. But this is the challenge. This is the challenge. We have, got to get this, guy. I'm trying to be as nice as I can about this. Got to get this. But we have approached anger in such a shallow way. We approach anger. This is how we approach. Me and Shaka, we sat down last night and we talked through these three things. This is how we approach anger. We either approach it from a perspective of aggression. I'm going to get what I want. You're going to respect me. You're going to give me, I'm due. This is what I'm due. And I'm not taking anything less than that. You're going to give me what I want or else I'm going to take it by force if I have to. The second way, that's a shallow way. Now, think about how shallow that sounds. Imagine what that's like for you when you're the other person. And somebody is standing above you or standing over you or talking to you and telling you what you're going to do and what they're going to do to you. It's silly. Who's ever gotten you to do that? That wasn't like a parent, right? And then as soon as you got away from the parent, you did whatever you wanted to do because there's no respect in that. There's nothing there. It's just aggression. Now, not only do we get this place of aggression, but for some of us, we respond to anger passively aggressive. We begin to manipulate. We say, okay, yeah, you can have your way. It's kind of like this, not my way, not your way, kind of like our way. You know, in our way, there's no such thing as our way. What you do is you act like, okay, I'm on board with this boss. I'm on board with this mate. I'm on board with this sister. I'm on board with this brother. And then you immediately begin to manipulate things behind the scenes. You immediately begin to try to turn people against the person. And you say, I'm going to do it, but. You immediately, end up being at the water cooler talking to everybody else, kind of just talking about the situation. Instead of just addressing it, the anger, instead of giving God the opportunity to come in and fix it, you do this passive aggressive thing. And that's shallow. You need to understand that's shallow. When you're gossiping, when you're on the telephone talking about a person, that's shallow. When you're doing stuff behind the back, and parents, I'm talking to parents now, we have this thing going on where, we get with the kids and we want to, we become the shallow person, right? Dad says something, mom says something, but we pull them to the side and we kind of like trying to build a little alliance off to the side. I don't agree with what mama said either, y'all, but we just gotta do it. We just gotta, and what you're doing in a very passive, aggressive way is you're creating this contention, this anger. You're handling the anger in a shallow way. And then that's this third way that we handle anger, and it's through suppression. You say, you know what? I'm mad, but I'm not going to say nothing to nobody. I'm just going to sit here. I'm not going to do anything. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. This is who the suppression people, you need to understand. This is a very shallow way to handle anger. Oh, I don't care. I'm just going to eat it. I'm just going to take as much of it in. I heard that in the spirit Friday. I'm just going to eat the anger. I'm just going to take as much of it in on the inside of me. And you have to understand, this is a very shallow way to handle anger. And this is why they're shallow. This is why. Look what he says right here. He says, refrain from what? Anger, and give up your what? Rage. Do not be agitated. It can only bring harm. So you got to understand this. You got to get to this place where you understand that when you're making a decision to be aggressive, you're just bringing in harm. When you're making a decision to be passive aggressive, you're just bringing in harm. When you're making a decision to suppress it, you're just bringing in harm. Matter of fact, anytime that you're not giving your anger to God, anytime that you're not acting as a thermostat, anytime that you're not searching God's word for your answer to anger, anytime you're not praying, anytime you're not doing something about the anger, anytime you're making it about them. See, all these right here, they make it about the person. Aggression, passive aggression, suppression, it's about what somebody outside of me is doing. And in order for us to go deeper, we have to begin to understand that anger is not about, your response to anger is not about what somebody else did. Your response to anger is about you. And this is what the writer of Psalms says. He says, listen, we've got to get to this place where we get rid of this anger, where we get rid of this rage, where we stop this aggressive behavior, where we stop this passive aggressive thing, where we stop this suppression because it's harming us. It's hurting us. Let's go a little bit further. He says, not only that, but this shallow anger thing. This shallow thing that we're doing, anger-wise, the way that we're handling things in this shallow way, being aggressive, being passive-aggressive, anybody getting anything out of this? Anybody get anything out of this? The way that we're handling anger is a shallow way to handle anger. And look what James says. He says, my dearly loved brothers and sisters, understand this. Everyone must be, look what you got to do, quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Why do we need to be slow to anger? Because man's anger does not accomplish God's righteousness. That regardless of what you try to do, when you're a thermometer instead of a thermostat, regardless of what you try to do, you're not accomplishing God's righteousness. There is nothing righteous about God when you cuss somebody out. When you put your hands on somebody, when you hurt somebody, when you give somebody the cold shoulder, somebody who needs you, and you're going to turn your cold shoulder to them in the middle of the time that we need to communicate in order to get things done, to stay united during this time. I need you as part of my life. I need to be able to hear from you. I've got all this stuff going on. I don't know what's going to happen with my job. I don't know whether or not I'm going to get sick or not. I've got all this stuff going on. And at this very moment, this is the time in which you're going to choose to not return phone calls. This is the very time. We're supposed to be in a relationship. We're supposed to be brothers. We're supposed to be sisters. We're supposed to be neighbors. At this particular time in this nation, we're going to get to the place where we become angry at each other. We've got all this stuff. The whole nation is under attack from a virus. The whole nation is worried about whether or not they're going to live or die, whether their parents going to live or die, whether the job is going to. This whole nation is being attacked with finances right now. We all worried about whether or not we're going to have a job or not. We're all worried about our children. We're all worried about our parents. And at this particular time, now we're going to start to be angry with each other? Now it's a time in which we're going to get party affiliations going, and we're going to start talking about this and talking about that, putting each other down and being angry. Now it's the time that we're going to trade in our thermostats for thermometers. Now is the time that we're going to just throw away the people who've taken care of us. Now is the time that we're going to just walk away from all the goodness that God teaches us. Now is the time that we're going to get angry and we're going to put all of what we want before anything else and what we feel like we're supposed to get. Now is the time, and this is what James says. That is why this shallow anger thing where you get aggressive, where you get passive aggressive, where you suppress things, this is what he's trying to get you to see. It does not accomplish any righteous thing from God. You are hurting yourself. You are hurting yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. You are hurting the people around you. Physically, mentally, and spiritually, you are closing doors that should be opening, and you are opening doors that should be closed. You are making mistakes because you're being driven by your anger, and there's no righteousness in God. And this is the thing. In order for us to go deeper, we have to understand it's about us and not about the situation. In order for us to go deeper, in order for us to come out of this is all shallow stuff because it's about us up here in the shallow. We can eat, we can feel good. You know, you cuss somebody out, you feel a little good, don't you? For a little while. It doesn't fix anything. And what God is calling us to do during this crisis, he's calling us to go deeper in anger management. And listen to me, I just want to take a second. James is the brother of Jesus. He begins to give us the formula to how we go deeper in anger management. He writes this beautiful writing. Listen, if you're looking for some place to spend time during this crisis, spend time in James. James has come up over and over and over again because James and the church during that time were under attack. They were under crisis. And so James' writings are all about how we're supposed to react during crisis. And during crisis, relationships are important. And what James begins to explain in the 4th chapter, starting at verses 1 through 4, he begins to explain, you got to go deeper in this thing. He begins to explain the causes, the reasons why we get angry. Now, you got to just clear your mind right now. Because everything that you have thought caused anger, none of it's ever been true. Look what James says. He says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? What caused you to get angry? What caused you to cuss people out? What caused you to give them a cold shoulder? He says, don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Not them. Not the situation in society, not what's going on. Doesn't this come from the desire within you? Tell us a little bit more about that. He says, you desire, but you do not have. You want something, but you can't get it. You want something to be done, and you want it to be done right now. I want charges filed right now. I want money given to me right now. I want a raise right now. I want us to be married right now. I want you to start putting the toilet seat down right now. Amen, Ashaki. I'm just trying to put a little honey with this medicine. I mean, we taking some medicine. I'm just trying to add a little honey to it. We taking medicine because you ought to be seeing. I see myself. This right here, this is not thermostat stuff. This thermometer stuff right here. I see shallow stuff going on. He says, this is the issue. This is why you fight. This is why you cussing people out. This is why you angry with folks. This is why you posting negative stuff about folks. It's because you want something and you can't get it. So you're willing to kill somebody's reputation. You're willing to kill somebody, get them fired off their job. Listen, let me tell you something. This is what we got to understand. Listen, I know, I'm trying to stay away from the topic, but I know we saw a man with a knee on his neck. But I want you guys to understand this. We're seeing people all the time with knees on their necks at work and at all different places and all kind of relationships. And sometimes because we want what we want, we'll put our knee on somebody and we'll hurt somebody. We'll run them out of a job. We'll run them out of a situation. We'll run them out of a place of power. We'll hurt our own sisters and brothers. We'll kill. He says you can't get what you want. You want to be in control. You want to be the person who called the shot. You want everybody to respect you. And because you can't get what you want, you start to get angry. He said that's what caused the fight. He says you desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet. You want what somebody else has, but you cannot get what you want, so you fight and you get angry. I want what you got. I want you to do what I tell you to do. I want my way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get aggressive. I'm going to get passive aggressive, or I'm going to get to this place where I just suppress it and just walk away. He says you do not have, and this is the reason why you do not have, because you are being, oh my God, because you are being, because you won't be a thermostat. You want to be a thermometer. You want these things. You want to put people in their place. You want to cuss people out. You think that it's the right thing to do. You think that it feels good, but it really doesn't. It has never accomplished anything for you. And what James says, what you really need to do is you need to get to this thermostat living. He says, you do not have. Why don't you have? Because you won't ask God. Because your heart won't melt and allow for the Spirit of the Lord to come in to your engine and into your situation and to fix the things that you struggle with. And that's the issue. He says the reason why you're not getting what you want, the reason why you're not accomplishing anything is because you're choosing anger. You're choosing to keep this thing closed and to keep everybody out, and you're just overheating and you're just going through all these different situations, and you just get to this place in your life to where things are just always all the time going on, and you can't figure out what's going on. And how do you know? I was looking at this thermostat thing, and it was showing me a couple of things. How do I know when I'm not doing the right thing? How do I know when I'm not allowing for Christ to come in and make decisions? And what God began to show me, it's no different than a car. Are you running hot all the time? Kids ought to be able to be kids without you running hot. Folk at work ought to be able to say something and correct you without you running hot. Your family members, they ought to be able to say something to you without you running hot. You ought to be able to watch the news without running hot. You ought to be able to see what's going on in this nation right now without you running hot. Are you running hot? The other thing I saw was, is it fluctuating? Have you ever been around a person in the same conversation, they go hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. I mean, they hit a topic, they just start to cussing and talk about what they ain't going to put up with, and they just get all angry and get all hot and bothered, and then all of a sudden, it just out of nowhere, but it's all good. Wait, what you mean it's all good? You just cussed for 5 minutes, you just talked about all the things that you're angry about, and now it's all good. But it's all good. Girl, what you got going on, huh? Listen, that's how you know when you're not allowing for yourself to be the thermometer, to be the thermostat, and you being the thermometer. Because thermometers go up and down depending on what's happening on the outside. But thermostats, regardless of the situation, they're able to stay constant. They're able to allow for God to come into every situation. James shows us something. I want to go back to the story. Just stay here for 1 second. He shows us something from this story that Jesus talks about. Peter gets upset. Peter hears this news. And you've got to understand that Peter and the rest of the disciples and the rest of the Jews during this time, they would have been waiting on a Messiah to come. And the promise that they thought, hey, we've got this Roman government that's been beating us up, taxing us, hurting us. They've been putting they knee on our necks, right? And what I'm believing is that this Jesus that I'm following, this is Peter talking. I'm believing that this Jesus that I'm following is he's about to fix this. He's about to give us back Jerusalem. He's about to come in. He's about to establish his kingdom. Peter's thinking, I'm going to be on his vice president of this thing. I'm going to be right there with Jesus the whole time, like in the catbird seat. And then Jesus all of a sudden begins to talk about this whole other thing where Peter's not going to get what he wants. And what Peter does is the same thing that we do when we're shallow in anger. He gets angry at God. You got to get this now. Because it's time out for this. It's time out. We just like Peter, we get to this place where we say, not you, not you. Listen, I want justice. I'm mad at God. I'm mad at everybody. I'm mad. And you get to this place where you internalize the anger and you suppress the anger, or you react in some aggressive way, or you're doing this passive aggressive manipulation thing. And that's not what God wants for us. And everything that James writes here is exactly what happens to Peter. He sees this situation. He's not getting what he wants. And so he begins to rebuke Jesus himself. He begins to want to fight, want to quarrel, want to fix this thing. Let's go make this thing right. This is not going to happen to you. I'm angry. He gets to this place of shallow anger where each and every one of us gets from time to time. And what he doesn't realize is that this is not about God. He didn't ask Jesus a question. He didn't go to God. He didn't pray. He just begins to react in anger. And his motives, this was all about his motives. This was all about him getting his way and doing it his way and doing what he wanted to do. And we learn some valuable things inside of this thing. If we want to go deeper, you have to see this. If you want to go deeper, it's not about what happens outside of you. If you want to go deeper, it's about what's happening within you. If you want to go deeper in anger management, if you want to stop acting the fool, cussing people out, doing whatever it is that you do, giving folks the cold shoulder, hurting folks' feelings, doing whatever it is that you do, if you want to stop having a strained relationship in your marriage, you want to stop having a strained relationship with your children, you want to stop having a strained relationship with your siblings, if you want to remove strained relationships outside of your work, what God wants you to do is not focus on what God changed this person. This is how we pray. God, change my husband, change my wife, change my children. God, fix my job situation. When God is wanting to do something within you, He wants to change you. So this is what we have to do. The first thing you need to do, and we learn this from this story, the first thing you need to do, you need to get away from angry people. Look what the Proverbs writer says here, Solomon. He says, don't make this the wise, and I always have to say this is the wisest man of all time. This is what the wisest man of all time tells you thousands of years later. He says, don't make friends with angry people. Why not? Why not, Solomon? And don't become a companion of a hot-tempered man. Why not? Or you will learn his ways. You won't change him. He'll change you. You won't change him at all. You'll learn his ways, and you will end up messing up your own house. This is so amazing to me because as I look at the statistics right now, like 80%, let me tell you, the difference between a protest and a riot, and I hate anybody that talks about any of this stuff as a riot. That's not what's happening. That's a protest, nationwide protest. You need to get this. But do you know what makes the difference between a protest and a riot? The people that you hang with. Do you realize that they're saying that 80% of the people who come into Charlotte and create these riots and looting and stuff, 80% of those people are from somewhere. They coming from their house to your house. They're going to tear up your PlayStation, and then they're going back to their house to play with their PlayStation. And if they have an opportunity, they're going to take some shoes out of your house. I'm trying to make this so plain. Because I'm talking to a bunch of thermostats. I think I can get real plain right here. I want you to understand this. You got people that's coming to your house and going to tear up your stuff and going to take some of your stuff and go back to their house. They got a PlayStation at their house. I'm talking to the kids, but I'm also talking to the adults too. And what it says is you got to get to this place where you get away from anger. Listen, we all got a call list is what I call it. These are people that you call when you mad at your husband because they are angry people and they're going to take, I wouldn't put up with that. These are the people that you call when you want to really whoop your children. When we grew up, they had Switch and they had a barber's belt and all this. You call these people because they give you, they're sinful sympathizers. They give you what you need to be able to go out and do what you want to already do. The desire is within you. The anger is within you. You're just looking for somebody to push you over and do it. And that's what happens in all these riot situations. You got these angry people who all they want to do is hurt somebody, and then the people around them, they don't know what to do, and they begin to associate. Next thing you know, they're walking out with Nikes and all kind of TVs and all kind of stuff. And this is what you need to do. I'm talking to you now. You need to get away from angry people. If you're following somebody, We go to these places where we want to hear people talking about social issues the way that we want to hear it talked about so that we can react the way that we want to react. We want to, because we want to hear it the way that they want to hear it, and it fans our anger, and we feel good about ourselves. Listen, you messing yourself up taking all that anger in and being a part of that. I'm talking to somebody today. Listen, I'm just talking to you for a second. For some of you, you need to stop watching the news. We get around angry people, and I don't care whether you MSN or Fox News, whichever one you like it because angry people are on the other side. They're talking about your issue the way you like to, because you're an angry person. You're a thermometer. You're not a thermostat. And so you love to hear them talk about your issue on MSNBC. You love to hear them talk about your issue on Fox News, and it just gets you all angry. Man, you all messed up. You ought to take your blood pressure before you sit down and watch the news. And then take your blood pressure again once you watch the news. What you need to do, get away from anything that's angry, any sites, any people. If you're following somebody and they constantly tweeting angry stuff, this is what Solomon says. He says, you need to get away from angry people, because this is what happens when you hang out with angry people. You get angry. They don't change. They don't like your post. They angry. They want you to be angry. If you're not angry with them, then you might as well go ahead and go somewhere else. Not only do you, and I want you to understand this, because Peter, if he's not with Jesus, there's no telling how this story goes. If Peter's anger is, and we know Peter was an angry person, if Peter's anger is unchecked by Jesus, by the people that he was around, there's no telling. Peter probably went out there and got himself killed. Not only do you got to get to this place where you get away from angry people, but let's check this out now. Stay with me. You got to move out. I'm moving you out the shallow. It's shallow for you to be hanging out with a bunch of angry people, a bunch of people who just make you want to go out and do something, make you angry, make you feel bad. It's shallow for you to be hurting your body, your mind, and your spirit, hanging out with angry people. That's shallow. You got to get to the deeper place. Not only do you need to get to this place where you get away from those people, angry people, but listen. You've got to get the enemy behind you. Jesus looks at Peter and he says, devil, get behind him. Get behind me. He's not calling Peter the devil. He just, in the very same conversation, he just told Peter, listen, I'm getting ready to build the entire thing. He just changed his name. Same situation. He just changes Peter's name. He just says, okay, I'm going to call you Peter. You're going to be the rock. We're going to build a whole church. A few verses later, now he's saying, devil, get behind me. He's not talking to Peter. He's talking to this thing that's on the inside of Peter, that's taking over Peter. He's telling Peter, listen, you need to understand there's a force at play now that's getting ready to make you do something that you're not going to be proud of. It's getting ready to make you do something in an angry way that you need to get that thing behind you. You got to get to this place where you say, enemy, get behind me. He says, be angry. Stuff's going to happen. But you need to understand this. You need to be angry. You need things to happen, but you need to be a thermostat when things happen, because just because things happen to you, you don't have to sin. You don't have to hurt anybody. You don't have to block anybody. You don't have to cuss anybody out. He says, do not let the sun go down on your wrath. You need to get that stuff out of you as fast as you can. Don't meditate on it. Don't spend days, weeks, months, years thinking about it, because the only thing going to come out of that is hatred. Yeah. He says, and don't, whatever you do, don't act like the devil. Don't do what you know the devil would want you. Make a decision right now that I'm not going to do the thing I know that would bring the devil glory, that would bring the devil honor. I'm not going to do the thing that I know that would bring the attention toward the evil that's in this world. I'm not going to go out and hurt somebody. I was watching the news the other night. They went to a cemetery. They spray painted on plots and stuff. Kick stuff over. No, that's the devil. That's the enemy. You need to tell the enemy to get behind you. When you feel yourself wanting to do these things, you ought to be able to say, and let me tell you something, you know when you're getting angry. You know when you feel that feeling in your you know it. And that's the point in which you're supposed to say, enemy, get behind me. Devil, get behind me. I'm not going down this path of anger with you again. And that's what Jesus does. He tells the enemy, he tells the devil himself, get behind us. And then Jesus gives this advice, and you got to get this. If we're going to go deeper, Go deeper. If you want to go deeper in anger management, you've got to say to the devil from time to time, listen, you got to get behind me. I'm not going to do this thing that you told me to do. I'm not going to go to this place that you told me to go. I'm not going to say this thing that you told me to say. But we got to get to this place. Jesus gives us 3 commands. He says, first thing I want you to do is I want you to deny yourself. I want you to get to this place where you deny yourself. And what do you mean by that, Jesus? What do you mean by deny myself? Look what Paul writes in Galatians, what the works of the flesh. The works of the flesh is you. This is what you like to do. This is what's inside of you. If left unchecked, the works of the flesh are obvious. Nobody has to argue with anybody about this. It's sexual immorality. You know, if there was no rules in place, there's no telling what we'd be doing. Moral impurity, just doing the wrong thing to people all the time. Promiscuity, idolatry, sorcery, all those things are works of the flesh. And then he gets into this yellow section, and it's all anger-based. Inside of you, you got to get this, in your flesh is hatred. For you to get anger with somebody and not to let it go and begin to hate a whole group of people, for you to have strife, for you to have unforgiveness. This is inside of your flesh. It's easy for you to do. Nobody has to teach you how to have strife, how to be angry with somebody for the rest of their life. Jealousy is inside of you. Outbursts of anger. Yeah, it didn't come out of there. It didn't come from children who have never been told, this is what I want you to do. They have outbursts of anger. It's born inside of them. Selfish ambition. That's on the inside of you. Dissension, factions, all that stuff's on the inside of your flesh. It's easy for you to do. It's a natural thing when somebody does you wrong to hate a whole group of people. It's a natural thing when somebody hurts you to have strife for the rest of your life. It's a natural thing to put yourself first. It is a natural thing to burst out in anger. Cuss somebody out. It's a natural thing. Nobody has to show you. Nobody has to teach you how to do this. You already know how to do it. You can do it in your own way. You can snap the finger. You can do all that stuff. But he goes a little bit further. He talks about this other thing. He says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faith, gentleness, self-control. And he says, against this list, there is no law. He says that for each one of us, you got to get this now, although it's in your flesh, although it's the thing that you want to do, there's a whole nother law that supersedes the thing that you want to do, that you have the opportunity. It does not matter what happened to you. It doesn't matter what your mama did or didn't do. It doesn't matter what your daddy did or didn't do. It doesn't matter what society did or didn't do. Inside of you is an opportunity for you to manage your own anger. You can react differently. You are a thermostat. God has given you the spirit of his living son is on the inside. His Holy Spirit is inside of you. The example of his son is there for you at all times. His word is there for you at all times. You just have to crucify yourself. You just have to make a decision. You just have to say, look, I'm not putting up with that. I'm not cussing anybody else out. You can date. You can make a decision today. I'm not going to have outbursts of anger. I'm not going to cuss anybody out. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. I'm not going to give them a middle finger. And I'm not going to try and weave all through traffic so I can get back in front of them up ahead and then show them, hey, I got you back. I'm not going to do any of that stuff because that stuff, it hurts me. It leads to accidents. It causes problems inside of me. But I'm going to be a thermostat. I'm going to deny myself. I'm not going to try to put people in their place. I'm going to deny myself. I know it feels like I need to do this, but I'm going to deny myself. Y'all with me? Anybody with me? Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm going to deny myself. I'm not going to do the thing that's easy for me to do. It's easy for me to cuss them out. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to repay this with kindness. That's not easy. That's deep. That's going deep. That's going deep in anger management. I'm not going to step back one time. I'm not going to return this thing with an outburst of anger. Instead, I'm going to love them. I'm going to love the hell right out of them. Because I know that cussing the hell out of them is not going to change anything. Beating the hell out of them ain't going to change anything. The only shot that I have at changing something is to just love the hell right out of them. Just love them until there's no more hell on the inside of them. I'm going to make the hard decision. I'm going to deny myself in a relationship. I'm going to put the other person first. I'm going to look toward goodness, and I'm going to rely on my faith and my gentleness, and I'm going to have some self-control. Not only does Jesus say that you have to deny yourself, but got to see this now. He says that you then need to pick up your cross. Look what Jesus says. He says, when I saw the crowds, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Jesus saw something, this anger, this compassion on the inside, this compassion and anger. We talked about it last week. This compassion and anger. Somebody need to do something about this situation. That's where you have to be. You need to pick up your cross. It needs you to get this now, because just not being angry doesn't give you the opportunity to just sit down and not do something. When you see something that's wrong, you need to do something. You need to pick up your cross. This is what Jesus says. He says there's a lot of people out there in need. There's a lot of people out there being hurt, but there's very few people who want to come and actually do something about it. And what he begins to say to us today, and what he's saying to Peter and to the disciples then, he's saying, pick up a cross. If you got a problem with what the people are doing, go vote. If you got a problem with what the people are doing, listen, I love this story of MADD, M-A-D-D, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. These are folk that were angry. They were mad about what happened to their families, about what happened to their children. And instead of them going out and finding the person that killed their children while they were drunk driving, you know what they did? They organized. And they changed the way the roads work. They changed speed limits. They changed alcohol levels all across the nation. We benefit because they were angry. They were mad. And instead of them just sitting around and talking about it and tweeting about it and saying ugly things and going out and hurting somebody, you know what they did? They organized and they changed. They made a difference. Yeah. And ever since they've been in effect, the rate of people who get killed for drunk driving has come down year after year. The way people are being prosecuted for driving drunk has changed in this nation because of these ladies that were angry. But they didn't just listen. They didn't just deny themselves. They picked up the cross and they're carrying it every day of their life. And listen, that's what we need from you. That's what we need from everybody. Listen, we need what we saw young Zach do this week. When you get angry about something and you see something, it's not about tweets and going out and saying ugly things or being angry and just hurting people and outbursts of anger, but it's about going out and doing something to make a difference. It's about going out and organizing. It's about bringing light to the situation. And what Jesus says here in this situation, he says, I saw these people and they were hurting and they needed help, and this is what I did. I began to teach them. I began to pray for them. I'm actually going to die for them. I'm going to do something about it. And in order for us to be followers of Christ, we got to understand this. When you get angry, that ought to be something that happens in your life that makes you angry enough to get up off of your bottom and go out and do something and make a difference. There ought to be some cause when you see them, and all of us got something different. For some of us, it's hard for us to look at. It's hard for me to look at. I had some aunties that were raising children by themselves, basically. It's hard for me to see a single person out there with children and not want to do something, not want to invest in, not want to spend time with. It's hard for me to see. I've been hungry before. I know what it's like to be hungry. So it's hard for me to see people on the street that's hungry, and I want to do something about it. Like Sister Liz, want to start a pantry, want to do something about it. There ought to be something. If you see children that are being mistreated, there ought to be something inside of you. I love what Devonia does with BCDI. She wants to do something. She wants to go out and do something. She sees children that are being mistreated at a young age, and she wants to go out and she wants to do something. She has picked up her cross. Zach has picked up his cross. And you have the opportunity today. What is the thing that just makes you bold? Just when you see it, you just get angry. Because they are waiting on you to pick up your cross. And then he ends, he says, not only do I want you to pick up the cross, but I need you to follow me. He knows that there's going to be times when you deny yourself and you deny it for a long time, and then you're like, oh, I can't deny it no more. There are going to be times when you pick up a cross and things are not going to go the way that you want them to go, and you're going to want to put the cross down. But he knows this. He says, if you get into the situation where it gets so hard for you, this is what I want you to do. If you get into the situation where it's hard for you to resolve your anger, this is what I need you to do. If you get into the situation where you feel like you can't control your anger, you can't manage your anger, then this is what I want you to do. I want you to come to me. Every one of you who labor, you anger in your heart. You tried to deny yourself, it didn't work. You tried to do something about it. It didn't work. And yet still, you're still struggling with anger. You know, here's the amazing thing about anger. Most people who end up in anger management classes are sent to anger management classes. Very few people go to anger management classes. And what Jesus says to us today, he says, come to me. All you suffering with anger, if you who labor, if you're heavy laden, he says, I will give you the rest that you need. If you're struggling with anger in your marriage, come to the church, come to the couples ministry. This is the thing that blows my mind. Do you know how many people get divorced and never go to God, never go to a Christian counseling session, never join a couples ministry? They allow for the anger to get inside of their heart. They're labor and heavy laden. And instead of them coming to the place where they can get rest, instead of them joining the church, instead of them sacrificing time when it kills me. I'm a couple. I know what it's like. I can talk about couples. You talk about spending time together. You together all week long. And you waste all that time. And then on the couples ministry meeting night, now you want to try and arrange some kind of Stop it. That's the thing that blew me away with singles. I was single for a long time. Listen, check this out. You got all week long to do whatever it is that you got going on. If you're struggling with anger, you need to get around some people. You need to stop hanging out with those people who just incite the anger inside of you. You need to get around some Bible-based ministry. You need to come. You need to come to Jesus. All who labor. If you're out there and you're angry and you don't belong to a church, you haven't done the first thing. You haven't come to the place where you can be helped, where you can be discipled, where you can be loved, where you can be treated right. You've been mistreated out there. I know some of you have been mistreated in churches. Shame on those churches for mistreating you. You've been mistreated in doctor's offices. You didn't stop going to the doctor. You've been mistreated in schools. You didn't stop going to school. You've been mistreated you didn't stop driving cars because somebody mistreated you in a car. You got mistreated when you bought that car from that lot, but you didn't stop buying cars. But let some happen at a church. Now you angry. Now, they shouldn't have done that to me. Here's the reality. The answer to this is inside of you. You've got to get to this place where you separate yourself from the people. You've got to get to this place where, got to hear me out now, where you decide to deny yourself. You've got to get to the place where, got to hear me now, got to hear me, where you begin to say to the devil, first of all, need to recognize that the devil is in you sometimes. You got some devil in you. I know you saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, but he pops up on the scene every once in a while and make you act a fool. You got to get to this place where you understand that the devil is active in some of the things that you have going on in your family, some of the relationships. You didn't talk to somebody a long time. The devil is involved in that. You got to get that thing behind you. You got to deny yourself. You've got to take up your cross. And look what he says. You got to come to me. You got to follow me. You got to follow God. You got to come and lay it down at my feet. You got to let me work on your anger. You got to open up the valve and let me to do my job. Let for me to send in the cooling spirit and fix the situation in your life. You got to take my yoke upon you. I'm the radiator. You're not the radiator. You're trying to do my job is what the Spirit of the Lord is saying. Let me be me and you be the thermostat. He said, and learn from me. Learn how not to be angry. Go deep in this thing. Spend time in the Bible. Learn from me. Understand what it's like to be sacrificed. Understand what it's like to have to be humble, although you have the power. Understand what it's like to have humility, although you're in charge, although you're the king. You put on this flesh, and you walk along with these people, and you go through all this suffering, and you never get angry. He says, I need you to learn from me, for I'm gentle, lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your anger. You'll find rest for your soul. You'll find rest for yourself. He says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I'm going to start asking this question every week. What is it that God is saying to you? That's what I learned from this sermon. That's what I've learned. Before we get to the imagine part, because I like to get you to think about it, because if you think about it, you can do it. But let me just start every week by asking you a simple question. What is this sermon saying to you? Not to somebody else, not to the society, not to the government, not to the other party. What is God saying to you? And I want you to imagine, if you would listen to him, if you would go deeper in anger management, if you would deny yourself, if you would actually take up a cause, if you would actually get behind something that gives you that angry feeling, if you would actually come to God, if you would actually be a part of a men's ministry meeting, now you become the man that you want to be. Can you imagine what it would be like if you would actually follow what God is saying to you right now? If he put you around a group of men that could encourage you and get you on the right path, and now you become the father. You go back and fix all those situations where your children are estranged from you. You become the woman that you desire to be. You become the virtuous woman that you desire to be because you denied yourself. You got yourself around. You got out of the company of all these people who were actually agitating you and making you do things the wrong way. And you begin to follow Jesus. Imagine that. Imagine what this would mean to your relationships. Imagine what this would mean to your life. Imagine what this would mean to your gut. If you didn't suppress things, if you weren't aggressive, if you wasn't passive aggressive, because this is what it's going to take. It's going to take for you to see this anger that's going on the inside of you and for you to manage it. And it's all about you. It's not about anybody else. This is what I want you to focus on this week. I want you to get to this place where the anger that you see, the anger that I see, what I want you to do, that anger is going to be managed by me. I want you to make a decision to go deeper in anger management, not just doing the thing that make you feel good, not just allowing for your flesh to take over, but you begin to operate in the spirit, not just hanging around people that incite all this anger around you, not just going to post and like some of the stuff we like. It doesn't even make sense, some of the stuff that we like. We're people of God. Do you realize that you're liking posts that are talking about hurting somebody else, that are hating somebody else? We're doing that. We need to get away from that. That's not what we've been called to do. We've been called to be thermostats. And by being thermostats, we have to be able to see the anger, feel the heat, and allow for God to come in, allow for the radiator to work. And that's all, listen, that's all. Just like this thermostat manages it, you've got to see this. Your anger, the heat in your marriage, the heat in your situation, the heat that you feel is managed by you. It's not about what nobody else did. It's about what you do. To God be the glory. Amen. Amen.